Hello, hello, hello. Hello, hello, hello. We are active. We are live. This is the Gin and Tonic show. Welcome. It's the 7th of February. Oh my goodness, it's already February. I mean, it's going to be Christmas soon. So, anyway, welcome to the Gin and Tonic show where we discuss Islam, where we try and discuss Islam in a way that is not going to hurt, damage, whatever anybody else, where we're trying to be as objective as possible, where we're trying not to follow what others are saying, where we're trying not to go according to what the left is saying, the right is saying, or anything, but we're trying to stay on track. All right, the way that it works is that I'm just going to do some definitions because I never understand this. I had another guy this week who simply did not know that atheists, in other words, non-believers, do not believe that everything happened by chance. This is not something that atheists do. This is why at the beginning of every single show of the Gin and Tonic show and what was the Path to Hell show, I do definitions in the beginning to define what we're talking about. And it's a really, really sad day because it's the first time since actually quite a long time, because there's a German language show which is similar to Gin and Tonic, where, except it's not so much of a discussion show, it's more of a fact delivery show, passing on information to German non-Muslims and Muslims alike. What has happened is that somebody did not like this and reported it, and YouTube decided in their eternal wisdom to close half the functions of the show. So in other words, this show is no longer able to live stream, which castrates it. In other words, there's no way that you can do anything. You can't live stream. You can't do videos more than 15 minutes. You can't compile anything that is anything remotely copyrighted or something like this. So there's a lot of restrictions on you just because some idiots cannot handle a discussion on Islam. Just because people, I don't get it. I don't get it. Why are people so weak and so vulnerable and so threatened by people talking about their ideology? I don't understand it. So anyway, what Ike is now thinking about is either going alternative, in other words, like taking a totally different platform, or finding a different platform where this can be aired. Okay, we'll have to see what happens. Anyway, then we do video of the week, misconception of the week, we do some news, we do the hadith of the week. And let's just start off, and I'm trying to get this. Actually, I should automate this so that it stays consistent and it's not so long, because I want to stay quiet today and let others talk, because I hope everybody survived last week's 8-hour marathon. Nobody, is suffering from any permanent damage. So I want to let others talk and not just me. So the way that it works is that you either go to just godless.ch, where you can watch and you can participate by typing. And I see that the type chat is not active yet for some odd reason. And the other thing is you can go to hangout.godless.ch, which means you just come in here and you participate straight in the Hangout. And then you can air whatever you want. I mean, you can ask questions, you can make comments, you can do things, because today Abu Maulid, I hope, is going to be here, and he is going to give us a short lecture if he had the time to prepare for this. So this will be wonderful. Okay, so let's start with the definitions. Let me make it quick. The way that it works is we are non-believers. But the funny thing is that I'm not a racist, okay? But there's no word, there's no a racist, there's no a philatelist or something like that. For some odd reason, I need to identify myself as something that I'm not. In other words, I don't believe in gods or ghosts or spirits or anything like this. So because I don't, I call myself a non-believer. And now as a non-believer, the only thing that I do is I don't believe in gods or ghosts or things like that. Now, that does not mean that I automatically believe that the, I don't know, theory of evolution is A, B, C, or D, or true, or half true, or a little bit true. This does not affect me. So, in other words, if somebody were to come now and disprove the entire theory of evolution, I would just shrug my shoulders and say, so what? It does not affect me. The same thing as you know, if somebody were to find out now that the whole universe was created by that we actually, you know, like, I don't know, the result of an alien fart or something, who cares? I still wouldn't believe in gods. And the other thing is, if there were a God, like if a believer would now come and say, listen, here's my God, I don't know, define what God is, I don't know. And then he would say, here he is. And this God would say to me, yep, I'm a God, da, da, da. And I would believe that this is a God. Then I would not be able to be an atheist, because I would then believe in the existence of at least one God. But this does not mean that I would worship this God. I don't know why theists automatically, I don't know, associate belief with worship. You can't. So, number one, I don't believe that gods exist. Number two, even if gods would exist, it doesn't mean that I would worship them. And number three, I have yet to find a convincing definition of what a god actually is. Everybody tells me it's a creator. Well, what do you mean a creator? What does it mean to create? I mean, if I build a table, all I'm doing is rearranging wood particles. And if I mean, how do you create a universe? I mean, it does. Why do people think it takes a lot of power and might and all this shit? It doesn't. You just check a couple of, you know, bit of matter around, and then gravity and everything will do the rest. And if you're lucky, it will arrange itself into something that we have today, and blah, 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 and there you go. And now, 14 billion years later, we go and we look at this and we say, look, here's the speed of light. Here's the subatomic particles, here are the different fields, here's this. Let's take a look how everything fits together. And we're looking after the fact. And it's not a matter of looking ahead and saying, okay, we need a gravitational value of X, we need this. No, it is not planned in advance. It is something that happened in the past. So that's the way that I see it. So I am somebody who does not believe, which makes me a human being, because a human being plus the belief in a God is a theist, and I am a human being without that belief. So I'm just a human being, because 1 + 1, in other words, the human being plus the God belief, what makes it 2. But if I take the 1, the human being, and I add nothing, I still remain the human being. And that's how easy it is. I don't know why I need to identify myself. I also don't have wings. I can't breathe underwater. There's a lot of things I am not and I can't. But I don't identify as those. Why do I need to identify as somebody without gods? I don't understand this. But to keep the discussion going, I accept the label atheist for historical reasons. You know, just to pacify the theists who are insecure and who can't handle if there's somebody who doesn't believe what they believe. Now, the other thing is that if I then accept that there's a what you might call it, a God belief, which I don't have, why do then people go even further and say, well, if I have a God belief, then I am practicing something? What do I do if I don't believe? What is the action associated with non-belief? There's not a lot I do as in my capacity as atheist. So atheism, the ism, doesn't exist. I don't know why I need to accept all sorts of stupid things just because people can't imagine what it is like not to have a dragon, not to have a God in your life. Yeah, okay, that was intentional, because I always bring up my favorite dragons, because I think it's actually a fitting analogy, because I don't believe in gods, I don't believe in dragons. So as soon as somebody brings me a dragon, or brings compelling evidence that they exist, I will believe it. But before that, I don't do it. All right, we talk about Islam. And if we go back in history, if we go look at the text, if we go look at any description of Islam, we always see that it has a goal, which is the caliphate with Sharia for the entire planet. So in the middle, in the central figure is a god. This god calls the shots, and then it's a socio-political system surrounding it, an ideology, a political ideology, and a worldview, a way of life, and all sorts of other things. And this religion in the middle, this God calling the shots, determines all these other elements. With the political ideology part, in other words, the commands regarding foreign affairs, justice, finance, war, and so on, they have, well, they've been tried to, no, they are being implemented, but unsuccessfully so. So if you ask a Muslim, I think everybody agrees that no Muslim so far has told me, yes, today we have a country, a nation, a region, an area where the Sharia, in all its completeness and superiority and everything, has been implemented. They always say, no, the versions that you have today are not complete, are not the perfect way, and blah, blah, blah. And then you ask, well, what is the perfect? Well, then you have to go back to the Salafis, who claim that it has to be the way that Muhammad left it. Well, Muhammad left a mess, okay? So if you want to have a mess, you can just go to Iraq. There you have a mess. Now, what is the difference between Sharia and the perfect Islam and Iraq? Well, people can't really tell you. They will just say, well, it's not the real thing. But there's no definition of what the real thing is. Like, there's no definition of Sharia. There's no book which says this is Sharia. Because Sharia is loosely based on Qur'an and Sunnah and the prophetic traditions and everything. But if you ask a Muslim, well, what is it? You will get, well, if we have 1.5 billion Muslims, you will get 1.5 billion different versions of it. So that's the way that it is. So that's what we need to accept. And this is why we are here. We are trying to show how things work together. Now, Ike did a beautiful job, because he went through the Quran letter by letter, word by word, sentence by sentence, and explained it. And really to show people how ridiculously vague and ambiguous the Quran actually is. That there's nothing that you can take at face value. You need interpretation. And so that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to provide the whole bandwidth of Islam, the historical view, the text, the interpretation, the old interpretation, the modern interpretation, the implementation today, and this holistic approach is what we try and see and see if we can bring that across. Okay, and then we have different topics, and we talk about these things and see if we can explain Islam and its contents to others. And if others have questions, we try and find real serious answers. In other words, I try at least not to go into polemics or into propaganda and things like that. At least I try. Now, there's let me go to the video of the week, which, I mean, this gives me so much hope. This gives me so much feedback. This gives me so much, so much backbone if I see, and it fills me with envy if I see these people. Because I'm talking about the black ducks. Now, black ducks are like black sheep in English. The black ducks in the Saudi environment or Arab environment are the ones which stand out. And they are sticking out because they don't have a God belief. And these are people in Egypt. These are people in Saudi. These are people in those countries who do not believe that the Islamic God actually exists. And they don't believe that they should worship if there is a God. And I find this so brilliant. I find this beautiful. I've tried to get, because the guy who's behind this, Ismail Mohamed, I tried to contact him and see if I can get him on the Gin&Tonic show. And I want to see if I can't help them, because they're not English speakers, okay? So if I can help them in any way, I will try and do that. So I want to get him here, give them more visibility, because I think this channel, the Black Ducks, should be subscribed millionfold, so that people get the first-hand information from Arab-speaking people living in an Islamic majority state, what it is like to live in Islam not being a Muslim. And that is brilliant. And this is the video that I took there. I'll put that in the description, and I'll put this into the archive. The about page of the Black Ducks. Brilliant. I mean, I love it. And I also, please go and watch the Black Ducks, get the information from them, subscribe to them, and then, I mean, they have topics, they have different people talking about different things, always giving their own experience. And this is the beauty of it. This is not me. Exactly what I was just saying. This is, if they need an interpreter, I can help. Exactly. This is what we should do. Offer our help to those people, because I think this is the best way of doing it. Going there as an Arabic channel, because they're doing everything in Arabic, and now they've opened it into an English channel as well. And I think that deserves as much support as we can muster to bring those people up to speed, and to eventually get them. They are the ones who should carry the flag. They are the ones living in the country, living in the environment. They know this better than anybody else, because I can only, well, I mean, I've lived there, sure, but I was not, you know, as a Muslim. I was always as a non-believer in a Muslim country. So I've always been like the external person, and these people are internals. They used to be, they have, they are, and so on. And this is why I think this is so brilliant. So the misconception of the week. I've been sidetracked with them because there's a session manager from Mozilla which is suddenly popping up here. I don't know what they were. The misconception of the week is Saudi Arabia. Now, Saudi is doing a couple of like really weird things in the, you know, recently, I think, because what they're doing is they're saying, yeah, women can now vote, and they have equal rights. And then, if you look at this, it's absolute nonsense. And so, if I go and look at what they are claiming regarding women's rights, and then look at reality, and I've written down a couple of points. Under Saudi policies and practices, women cannot drive. They cannot travel without the consent of a male family member, known as mahram or guardian. They can't marry without the consent of a guardian. They can't work without the consent of a guardian. And I know from my own experience, they can't even open a bank account. A woman going into a bank needs to show a piece of paper saying, I'm the husband and my wife can go and open a bank account. They can't appear in public without covering themselves. And they need this, and this is the funny thing, they need an abaya or chador or hijab or burqa, niqab, khimar. There's millions of different things that women need to wear in different regions, in different cultural areas. This is because the Quran not once uses the word hijab in connection with clothing, and does not say anywhere that a woman needs to cover herself excepting hands and face. It does not say that. It doesn't mention that a woman needs to cover her hair. So they need to go to what Mohamed said, and then they say, well, we need to cover ourselves because it's modest. And I mean, I always maintain, instead of teaching women how not to get raped, the Quran should teach men not to rape. It would be so much easier. Anyway, they can't receive the same inheritance as a man. They can't work in certain jobs. They can't mingle with unrelated men, not in public and restaurants and things like that. They can't divorce as easily as a man, but they can vote in municipal elections. Okay, this is what we're talking about. They're not allowed to go into parliament and things like that, but they are allowed to go into municipal administrative jobs and functions. They can sit on the Shura Council, the body which advises a cabinet, and they can go and have companies and things like that. Now, the funny, I always bring this as an example. My wife's beauty salon. She had other companies, and she could not actually run them without the help of a man, because the people would not accept commands from a woman. So that's the reality. So this, in my eyes, is the misconception of the week, because it shows how the claims made by Saudi and by other countries as well. Okay, Malaysia, for example, it's not as bad, because Malaysia still at least keeps up the pretense of a secular country. I mean, the reality then is also something different. So let's go to news, and this is where I'm hoping that others participate. And this is why I'm hoping that now I can just sort of talk about these things, and then everybody will chime in, and then I can just keep quiet. So I'm not, as Ike always puts it, the what do you call this? What does he call me? The dictator or something like that. I don't know why. So if you want to say something, welcome to do so. Please feel free to discuss this. The first thing, well, what I've got as topics today is not so many this time. Coffee, which was invented by Muslims, emerging young women leaders Congress, then the Turkish delight or Turkish genocide, Boko Haram, Daesh. Of course, how can you have a program on Islam without Daesh and refugees? And then, of course, Abu Maajid is going to lecture us. So let's take a look at coffee first. Now, there's a claim that coffee was actually invented by Muslims. But then, am I Albanian? No, he's from Switzerland, Kosovo, actually Kosovo, Albanian, yeah. Remember, he's not active here at the moment, so he cannot see your comments here. If you write them on the other one, he can. But if you're not active on in the Hangout, others cannot see the comments. Okay, coffee was invented by Muslims. People say that it was invented in Yemen. Which is absolute bullshit, because nobody can tell you where coffee was actually invented, because it needs to be invented. It cannot be discovered, because you first need to go and take the beans, and then you need to go and roast them, and then you need to squash them, grind them, or whatever, and then you need to put hot water through them. Okay, so that's not something that you find in nature. That is something that you physically have to go and do. You have to invent the methodology of creating coffee. There you go. You take water and coffee beans and you mix them, and that is what your invention is. And nobody knows where coffee actually came from, who the first people were, what the evolution of coffee was. Nobody knows this. So to say, yeah, it was invented by Muslims in Yemen and blah, 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 and it's stupid. We know that coffee exists, and we know that people have had coffee for over 1,000 years, and there you go. Why not just simply just enjoy it? But now, hang on. How can you enjoy it if you're a woman? And in Saudi Arabia and in Riyadh, the capital, how do you do it? Because women have been barred from entering a Starbucks in Saudi Arabia. And this establishment, unlike all public establishments in Saudi, has no gender separation wall. Because, I don't know, people in the Middle East will know this, or who have been to the Middle East, that if you go somewhere, you will have, well, in Dubai and in some places you don't have this anymore, but in Saudi Arabia, in Afghanistan, places like that, Sharia, those places still have gender separation walls. In other words, you have separate entrances for singles, for men, for women, and for families. And the thing is always the family entrance, because women can only enter through the family entrance, so that a single man who enters through the single men entrance can't see a single woman entering through the family entrance. And this is the whole point, because you're not allowed to have men and women freely mingling. Because if a man sees a woman, he's immediately going to get a hard on and immediately going to jump him. And you don't know what's going to happen in a restaurant, in Starbucks, if you have a single man and a single woman behind each other ordering coffee. You never know what will happen. So keep them separate. And if you can't, because the gender separation wall has broken down, it collapsed for some reason, women are not allowed to enter it. Why? Well, because the Commission for the Promotion of Virtue and it's the Commission for the Promotion of Virtue and Prevention of Vice. Now, come on, it's the religion police, okay? So the religion police have said, nope, you're not allowed to go into a Starbucks if you're a single woman. There's a sign on the door which says, women not allowed, please tell your driver to go and get your order for you. Because remember, women are not allowed to drive. So if a woman wants to go somewhere, she has to go and get a trusted man who is allowed to drive her around. And if she feels like a cup of coffee from Starbucks, she has to let the guy park outside. He runs inside to get the coffee, and then she has to drink it in the car. So if she wants to meet some girlfriends, she can't go to Starbucks. She has to go sit in the car. Oh, this is so pathetic. It's unbelievable. Now, Starbucks slaves, they have separate seating areas for families and singles, and you see them everywhere. I mean, so the genders come. And this particular one doesn't have it because I think this was an experiment to see if they can push it. Because of course companies and of course people are pushing it. Of course they are. Well, in this case it doesn't work. And the thing is, if you do, you can get arrested. And they can go and close down a Starbucks. If a man and a woman are seen, I mean, even if they're 15 meters apart, if there's a single man and a single woman somewhere within 500,000 kilometers of each other, it's going to lead to illegitimate sex. So you can't have that. I mean, I can't think of a more backward place on this planet. And I mean, I don't know if somebody has been to Egypt and to Jordan, because a couple of 100 years ago they had murals there in this area, okay, celebrating sex. So I don't know what went wrong. I mean, it's like I think everybody knows that the communists had these valuta shops, okay, where only foreigners and those equal communists who were a little bit more equal than others could go, where the local currency didn't work, where locals were not allowed. I mean, that's how sick this is. Like discos in Qatar, like the caste system in India. Come on, it's the 21st century. Any comments on this? Anybody want to talk about this? I'm going to keep quiet for 15 seconds.
No, nothing to say about coffee, but I have an alternative video of the week for people to watch. The Quilliam Foundation seems to have found a very old 2007 public speaking by Maajid Nawaaz, and they've posted it up on YouTube and on their channel, and it's a very interesting talk from him about how he became radicalized and what he ended up believing in, and then his career in Islamism before getting put in prison and reflecting about his Islam, where it should be, and his role in it. Highly recommended.
But is that the same thing that he always talks about? How he was radicalized?
He goes into far more depth.
Okay.
More depth than I've ever heard. He talks about his what he actually believes in, how he constructed his worldview as to why there should be a caliphate and why the Middle East was not Islamic. What he did when he went to school, where he went to as college, how he started to indoctrinate the Muslims in that college, so that there became a lot of trouble between non-Muslims and Muslims, ending up with him being expelled from the college after somebody got murdered.
Wow.
So it's something I've never heard before, as far as I can tell.
I'm going to include it as well in the description, so that people
you'll look in the group chat of this chat, you'll see me, I've linked the video.
Yeah, but this might disappear. This is why I'm putting it into the description box of this video.
Yes, please do, because I only saw it yesterday. It's not particularly good quality. I mean, it's audible. You can listen to it, but you can tell where they've split it up into different parts, and one part will be louder than another part. And the question and answers at the end is absolutely diabolical, the way it falls apart. But thankfully, they have put it up, and you get a fascinating insight into the mind of a terrorist as he was a terrorist back then. And you can probably understand how terrorists feel today. Why are people leaving your country and going abroad? Because they seem to have the same belief system that Maajid had.
Wow.
Excuse me, my cough.
Well, thank you very much for that. Let's take a look at it later. Not now, please. Don't I want don't go
Don't
away
watch
and
it
watch
now.
the video now.
It's good 40 minutes to an hour long, his talk.
Yeah, but I don't want
A
people
lot.
running off now to say, oh,
Oh,
yeah,
no,
yeah, yeah,
no,
Chief
no, no,
Priest
no!
has just
Don't go
posted a
watch it
video. Let's
now.
go and watch it.
Watch it later, because it really does require your attention and thinking about what he says. To
Brilliant.
reflect on it. Hmm.
Okay. Any other comments, questions at this stage?
Who invented tea then?
I don't know, actually. Was it the Chinese or the Indians?
I think it was the Chinese, but we grew it from the Indies, didn't we?
But
As
the
the
Japanese sort of converted it into an art form.
Oh well, yes, the Japanese stole everything from the Chinese. If you ask the Chinese,
Don't say that. Do you want to start World War III?
have you not seen that video? It's hilarious if you can find it. It's a talk of history of Japan. It just came out on Twitter sometime this week. It is absolutely hilarious, talking about the history of Japan and how they stole everything from everybody else.
Oh yes, this is like Russia and the USA always at each other's throats about everything. Unbelievable. Okay, so if there's no comments on the Saudi Starbucks
Well, there is a
story,
comment
sure.
about dating side of that coffee debate and the Starbucks. There's news in the UK that dating has gone up as far rapes in dates on internet sites has gone up.
Sorry, I don't understand. Date rape has gone up, or on the internet, or what?
Dating sites, the incidences of rape have gone up.
Okay, I don't understand what rape and dating sites. How does that work? How do they go together?
Well, men sign up for dating sites, meet a woman, and rape her. Is that what you
Oh,
mean?
so it is date rape, which is instigated
Date
or
rape
facilitated by
from
meeting women
yeah,
online.
and as you know, people like oh gosh,
Tortoise.
Tortoise joined a dating site,
In
and
Madison, yeah, yeah, yeah.
you wonder how many other Muslim men have joined these dating sites, and if this is a correlation, they're no longer being predatory grooming on the streets, so they're reverting to the date sites. Of course, there's no actual evidence of this; it's just a speculation. But if they, as a culture, find it very difficult to meet new women, do they use these sites? Is it causing a
Well,
problem?
the thing is, if you listen to some Muslims and when they talk about morality, then there are certain elements that are missing. Like I don't need a God to tell me not to kill, not to rape, not to do this, not to do that, not to, and so on. So I don't need a God, but they need a God to stop them from doing certain things. And the problem is that if this God does not do this, what is there to stop them? And that is why, if it is not explicitly forbidden or prohibited or shunned or whatever in the Quran, well, then they can go ahead and do it. Now, the Quran can be interpreted to say that you are allowed to have sex with underage girls. Now, if you interpret it that way, which it very easily can be done, then you can say, well, my religion allows me to do that. And then those things happen. And then if you, for example, you say, well, number one, women are of a lesser degree or 1 degree less than men. Number two, infidels are lesser than Muslims. Ergo, an infidel woman is 2 degrees lesser than me, so I can treat her any way I want to. And
Well,
then they do exactly that.
they usually say that infidel women, are unwrapped candy who deserved to be eaten.
Yeah, they're wearing their rape suits. Exactly.
And I heard a Muslim, an older Muslim, in middle age by the sounds of it, talking about how it's the young, what would you call a young religious teacher? Your dower man, or whatever they call themselves, as evangelist preachers or whatever. They're the ones who are propagating it. It's not the older generation, not the people in their 40s or older, but these 15-year-olds and up who are holding these dour men in high esteem and preaching these stupid memes about candy women needing to be wrapped or eaten.
Yeah, because it makes them feel superior. That's the whole thing about it.
Hmm.
Okay, then let's go to the next topic, which is a Congress. And this Congress was emerging young women leaders, and it was in Pakistan. Now, the thing is that women in Pakistan should, and now I'm quoting, struggle for comprehensive solutions to build a society based on peace, democracy, rule of law, justice, equality, and freedom. Now, this is a quote by the Nobel Peace Laureate Tawakkol Abdel Salam Khan, and she is the first Muslim Arab woman who was awarded the prize back in 2011. And she said that women should struggle for equality and freedom wearing a traditional Islamic head covering. Now, what message does that project? And then she says governments, institutions, and laws should guarantee active participation of women in all walks of life, adding that a special quota should be reserved for this purpose. Excuse me? That's sexist, for me at least. How can you have a special quota for women when you are striving for equality? That doesn't work. I mean, either you're equal or you're not.
Mansplaining that.
Sorry, we
Mansplaining.
Mansplaining what?
Mansplaining.
What is mansplaining?
What you're doing. You're explaining why women can't do things. That's mansplaining.
I'm explaining why women can't do things. I think women can do things. It's just that in Islam, women can't do things.
I don't think you could get it, do you? It's what the social warriors are doing, and the feminists. If you, as a man, start talking about anything to do with women and explaining why they can't do it, you're mansplaining. It's the new term to shut you up.
So in other words, I shouldn't be a feminist as a man.
You can't be a feminist as a man.
Okay. Well, I'm not a feminist because I think that's the opposite then of a chauvinist. I am a little bit of a chauvinist, absolutely. So I will open a door for a lady, and I will let her go first, and you know, things like that. I will show politeness towards the female species. I will try and take care of them. In a social environment where I will go and protect them from blah 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 if it's raining or something like that. You know, you get the picture. But I still believe that they should have equal rights. I believe that a woman should be able to pilot a Boeing 777 if she wants to do it and if she is capable of doing so. Well, she should not be stopped from driving, for heaven's sake.
The women who seem to be supporting that idea are now, I believe, the femmen. They're the ones who dress up naked.
A label. I don't understand.
Right, because feminism is now the women who want all the perks and none of the responsibilities.
Okay, that doesn't work. That doesn't work.
But that's what they want. They want to be able to say whatever they want on the internet, but then they go to the United Nations and say anybody who criticizes me must be banned because we believe in freedom of speech. They want all of the benefits and none of the responsibility or consequences.
Okay, that doesn't work, and I don't propagate this, I don't condone this, and I will strongly oppose this. Yes, a woman should have equal rights, a woman should have equal pay for equal jobs, and equal this and equal that, but not the
femmes are the women who are going out and making some kind of political statement like Pussy Riot has done against Russia and Putin, and taking responsibility for their actions. They're shouting out for free speech and putting themselves on the line for it. So like there seems to be some kind of splitting up of politicalized views in the gender race.
Somebody says, and you'd stop as a full-out sexist. No! I'm the opposite. I'm the one who's propagating equal everything and equal everything, but not too much. I don't respect women who say, you know, who come from work where they will propagate, well, I'm the boss, or I'm this and I'm that, and I want equal pay, and then they come tip, 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 walk past the queue in the elevator and walk into the elevator first. That's a no-go. Sorry. No. If you want equal pay, if you want equal job, if you want equal responsibility, equal opportunity, then you're going to stand in line just like everybody else. I mean, from a feminine, well, what do you call it, posture point of view, yes, they are weaker, which is why I will go and be polite, but that's as far as it goes, and that's it. Now, I know that you're kidding. I'm not taking that serious at all. No, what I'm saying is I find it appalling that women in Saudi, for example, are not allowed to drive, are not allowed, and now there's somebody who's propagating, well, there's the first woman, first Muslima who's going into space. Now, how the fuck is she going to get into space? She's not allowed to because she needs to ask Allah for permission to leave the planet. And she's not allowed to leave before she gets the okay from her God saying, yes, you are allowed to leave the planet. Now, that's not going to happen. So how can a woman leave the planet? How can she go on the ISS if she doesn't get permission from her God? And then how can she go on the ISS if she can't fast, she can't pray, she can't, I mean, imagine if she makes a mistake in space and she has to go and sacrifice a goat. How's she going to do that?
There's a flaw in your argument from there, because what about female Air Force pilots that are in the Saudi Air Force?
Well, it doesn't make sense, does it? Well, they're not leaving the planet. They're not
are.
leaving the planet. And it's very easy to quickly land and go and sacrifice a goat. I mean, you can shoot it. You're sitting in an airplane, you see a goat, boof, you shoot it, you sacrifice it. Boom, gone.
I don't think there's nothing about sacrificing goats in the Qur'an, is there?
Of course, there's punishment.
Yeah,
there's
but not
punishment
goats.
if you do something wrong if you go on Hajj, for example, that you need to have an animal sacrifice.
Yeah, but that can be done later, couldn't it?
Well, it doesn't say so in the Quran. When the ISS lands, you're allowed to sacrifice a goat. Well, show me that in the Quran.
I didn't think it was in the Quran.
That's exactly why it makes absolutely no sense to say.
But you'd have to go accompanied, wouldn't you, by her family?
Exactly. Do you know that there are still countries today where the husband gets an SMS if the wife goes through immigration?
She has to be trained in Russia. Nobody goes up to the space station who isn't trained in Russia.
Well, now you have no. Elon Musk is now providing this because he's saying he's now ready to transport people because he's done a couple of shots into delivering the cargo, and he says he's now getting ready to transport people again.
I think North Korea might be entering the market as well. They got caught recently firing rockets into space.
What, using a slingshot or what?
No, yes. Apparently, they wanted to launch a satellite into space, didn't they? And
chewing gum.
The United Nations are all saying, "Oh, it's really a ballistics test for a nuclear weapon."
Yeah, I don't know. North Korea is a funny thing in itself. Okay, but the point that I'm trying to make is that a woman crying and screaming, and she's a Nobel Peace Laureate, nochal, and then she goes ahead and she screams equality while wearing a flippin' hijab, and then she's asking for a quota. I mean, how I don't understand how people function, how their brains work. How
discrimination, isn't it? That's the theory, that if you get positive discrimination long enough, it all equalizes itself out. It breaks the norm so that the norm becomes the new trend.
Yeah, but if you have equal rights and people should accommodate skills, abilities, and not gender, how can you have a quota?
Well, it's the same in Parliament. I know you don't like us talking about England, but the two political parties, the Labour and Conservative, are constantly battling each other as to who has the most women in the cabinet.
Yeah, it's that stupid. Isn't that stupid that they're trying to increase the numbers, but only after the fact? So in other words, you're gonna. I mean, this is like the affirmative action in South Africa, okay, where you are being hired because you are black. That's racism for me. I mean,
yes, that's been brought up as well in a recent problem, that blacks in the United Kingdom are asking for more university places, and Cameron is actually endorsing this, I believe. But the most underrepresented class at the moment in colleges are actually low economic white children.
Yeah, to me that's racist. You
It
shouldn't
is.
have that.
But
And
that's what you get
what
when
we
you
see in
get
South
positive
Africa is
discrimination.
reverse apartheid, where if you are black, you are fortunate because you get better education, better position, better pay, better everything, because you have your skin pigmentation is different. That's
Well, America
crazy.
has the problem of black-only universities, but there are no white-only universities.
Yeah.
There are black-only scholarships, but there are no white-only scholarships.
Rent a burak so you can fly instead of having to drive. Actually, what happens if a woman gets on a burak? Can she tell the burak where to go, or does the burak just take her wherever the burak wants to go? Huh. Okay, we'll have to have a poll on this. Turkish genocide or Turkish delight or Turkish whatever, because something that I was not aware of in history is what Turkey did around 100 years ago. And the thing is that I have heard about it, but it was sort of a hush topic in Iran at the time, because just before the end of the Ottoman Empire 23, there was apparently, and I don't know whether this is true. Apparently, it is true. Apparently, it's historically, it's historically verified. Yeah, I think it's a way to say, because there was a systematic execution, and it was starvation, it was physical abuse, and of Armenians in the. I mean, Armenia is on the east, like the northeast of Turkey and Iran, and there 1.5 million Armenians apparently were killed. Now I had an Armenian girlfriend. Okay, I remember her, and I mean, these were just normal people. But then so were the Muslims I was dating, and I was never aware of that. I was never aware that there had been like a genocide in Turkey by the Turkish government 100 years ago. I can't believe that. I mean, it's and that they say that there are eyewitness accounts, official archives, photographic evidence, reports of diplomats, testimony of survivors, and the government of Turkey simply denies this. And what is funny is that people talk about Christian girls being raped and crucified and horrific acts of torture and violence. And the funny thing is, some of this was even captured in a 1919 documentary, which was called Auction of the Souls. And this documentary contained video evidence of girls, for example, being crucified. And I don't know why Turkey can still deny this. I don't quite understand. So, quite weird. I don't know. I don't know why they simply can't accept it, and it goes down in history as genocide, and that is it. I mean, we know that there were genocidal governments. We know that. I always find this hilarious. If people go say, "Yeah, but the Christians had the Crusades." Yeah, but the Crusades, this was like 5 or 6 or maybe 20. I don't even know how many instances of people were, and they came to one single area. But if I look at what Muslims have done between Spain, between Cordoba and India, especially India, where they massacred, I don't know how many hundreds of thousands, maybe even millions of people. I mean, that was crazy. And then they say, yeah, but look at the Crusades. Oh, this is so laughable. Unbelievable. Okay, let's go to Africa. Boko Haram, which is education forbidden, all right? Um, I don't know, do people, has anybody ever followed up on this? Because I remember making a video on the
I
knowledge
heard
of
some
Haram.
recent things in Boko Haram. Did I not mention last week regarding their new policy for shooting people on buses?
No.
Right. As everybody is probably aware of from the news, the old policy was Boko Haram would hold up a bus, ask people questions about the Quran, and those who would answer the questions correctly would be spared. Those who would not answer the questions correctly would be shot. I think
Um,
everybody knows that, yes?
what is that called? Because if you're a different sex, you have sexism. If you have a different race, you have racism. If you have a different religion, what is that? Theoclism?
Sectarianism. Yes. Anyway, Some bright Muslims on buses decided that they were peaceful people and they wanted to protect the non-Muslims. Now, as everybody probably is aware, a Muslim should not kill a fellow Muslim. So what these Muslims were doing was standing in front of the Boko Haram's guns and protecting the non-Muslims behind them.
Wow, brilliant.
Yeah. Well, Boko Haram has now countered this with a fatwa. Anybody who stands in front of a Boko Haram gun is protecting an infidel. And if they are protecting an infidel, they are apostates and can now be legally shot.
Oh, fuck, this is so sick.
I only heard about this about middle of a week or so ago. It was by Isaac Cohen, who follows up on Islamic terrorism around the world. And it's quite shocking, but it does show the depth and the stretch that these people will change their own rules and their own faith to be able to commit their terrors.
Can I say something about that?
Please do, yes.
Because that's rather stupid. It's stupid from Boko Haram's point of view to make takfir on Muslims that protect infidels, because that's not really necessary. You see what I'm saying? Because this if they make takfir on them because they are protecting infidels, then people can come and say that they are Khawarij and therefore they are not really good Muslims. But that's not really necessary. They can just say that they are protecting the kuffar and therefore they have to blame themselves. So it's not necessary to make takfir on them. So it's quite stupid. I think they are shooting themselves in the foot.
So it's a double-edged sword here.
I don't think Boko Haram, if they're anti-education, can be claimed to be the brightest people in the box.
No, but it's weird that they don't realize that. That if they do things like that, they can be called Khawarij. They should avoid that from a tactical point of view.
Okay, but now, where does this come from then? Why is it that people are still saying that Islam is not the cause? What is the cause? What makes people do that if they say, well, if you are not a Muslim, if you're a Muslim protecting a kuffar, then you are not considered a Muslim. So
no, but they can still kill them because they are protecting them. They can blame themselves. They stand in the way. So, but it's not.
But is it then killing a Muslim?
Yeah, but it's I mean, I can't make a fatwa. But what I just wanted to say is that it's they are shooting themselves in the foot if they are making takfir on them first, because then people can accuse them of being Khawarij. So then people won't join them. But if they just say no, but they are maybe not kuffar, but they stand in the way, so that would be much smarter.
So what is the discussion then? Because I had a discussion last week with Klingshaw, who was saying, well, Islam is not to blame. Islam is not the cause for this. And I maintain, yes, it is. So how can you get to the bottom of this? What is the cause of this kind of activity, of this kind of behavior?
Well, first I think Klingshaw should come back so we can discuss this live. But well, I think it's probably more than one cause. I mean, people are motivated often by things they don't, maybe not even consciously can grasp. I mean, people have subconscious drives and so on, so it's a complicated matter. But I think it's a mix between the fact that you have a religion that gives you the right to wage jihad, for example, that justifies some inner violent urges. So I think it's a mix.
So it's like hooligans who don't have a religion, who don't have a god, but still go on the rampage?
Well, if it would be that I wish that were the case, but the point is I have met like jihadists and so on, and I also have met football hooligans, and I can see a psychological difference between them, and that is that the football hooligans tend to be like pure kind of sociopathic personality, like antisocial personality.
They
The
like to
sad-
fight.
Yeah, they have they are like clinically antisocial. The sad thing with jihadists, yes, there are a few people like that among jihadists, but the sad thing is that I would say that the majority of jihadists are not antisocial, not sociopathic guys. They are more often maybe like, yeah, it's normal guys, and maybe somewhat more like schizotypal kind of guys, but it's not the sociopathic kind of guys that becomes jihadists. It's more like the same kind of guys that becomes good undergraduate students. That's the kind of guys that become jihadists. It's weird, and that's the sad thing with Islam, that it can take people that otherwise would be good people and make them do a bad thing.
Yeah, but that's the old quote. Good will be good, bad will be bad, but to make a good do bad, you need religion.
Yeah, Steven Weinberg.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's a very brilliant guy, by the way.
Yeah, I agree. This is where this, I believe there is so much wisdom, there is so much truth in this statement. It's absolutely amazing. And this is why I see that Islam is a cause for a lot of this, because I did this in the discussion with Klingshaw, where I said, look, if I look at the guys in Paris, you can't tell me that random guys will hijack a random car, drive to a random office block, go to a random floor, then select another random floor, go and select a random office, then go through the offices until they find a particular random office, randomly shoot the people, then run outside and say, we are only, whatever, revenging the Prophet, randomly drive around and kill people, and then randomly drive off. You can't tell me that there is so much random there. It's not. Whereas if I now go and say, okay, Islam exists, and these people were indoctrinated, brainwashed, and influenced by Islam, then these people went and sought out the people who actually went and insulted, in their eyes, because you can't actually insult something that doesn't exist, the God, the book, the Prophet, all these different things. And they say, well, they have insulted them and now they deserve to die. And this is the influence of Islam. And this is why I say, yes, there is the source of all of this is exactly what you are saying. Bad will be bad, but if you want to take a good guy to make him do bad things, it takes religion. And that's what I'm saying. That's all. And this is what I see in Boko Haram.
I don't have experience of Boko Haram guys, so I can't say anything about them. But I know like Al-Qaeda back in the days, and they are the ones that now are like ISIS guys. And I also like know Shabab in Somalia.
Well, it's the Boko Haram guys. They pledge allegiance to Daesh. And all of them are saying, no compulsion in religion. You have yours, I have mine, so why worry? So there you go.
Okay. I got a question, Nebu. If you've sort of like met them, these people, these terrorists, they're not following a leader, are they? In that they are like people who live and die for the king, and they fight for the king because the king is the ruler. They're fighting for God, aren't they? They're fighting for their religion as their God has dictated it to them.
Al-Malikul Jabbar.
Well, yes, okay.
The king,
English.
the how do you say in English? Like the I don't know. Malik is king, but how do you translate Jabbar? It's like the big bully in the sky.
Yeah, I mean,
That's intellectual version.
If you look at any of the European histories, you'll find various battles and wars being fought because a particular baron or lord or king decided he wanted something, so he mustered his troops and invaded. But when that particular ruler died, you'll quite often find the actual war stops or fades away. But in a religion, it doesn't. They're not fighting for a leader. They're fighting for a theory.
It's the idea, yeah.
So if there's Baghdadi, if he dies, ISIS will not die in the sense that everyone will just put down their guns and walk away. They will still.
He's the catalyst converter, I think. Without him, you wouldn't have all the people working together. They would just go crazy. It's like a racing driver needs some sort of supervision, otherwise they would lose all races, because they would just go and race without thinking too much about it. That's why they need somebody to calm them down and make them use their heads. And the same thing would be the case if Baghdadi were to now wither away. They wouldn't know what to do with themselves. They would just go crazy, shoot everybody, blah blah blah.
Yeah, but they would still shoot. They would still shoot, is what I'm saying. They wouldn't just put down their guns and turn to plowshares. They would still believe exactly the same things they did before he passed away.
Correct, but they wouldn't be able to execute it so smoothly.
An important distinction between religions and other such things in leaderships.
Then going from
between a football supporter hooligan and a religious hooligan.
Let's go from Boko Haram straight to Daesh themselves. Because I find this quite interesting that experts are now suspecting that Daesh is suffering the same way as every region does that's in a war, because it's expensive and it gobbles up resources. So they're saying that the primary source of income, the oil, is now so cheap and buyers are far and few between that they're running into problems. I mean, they've lost vast numbers and vast areas since the US, UK, and even Russia has been starting their airstrikes. And this increases the internal pressure to perform and the challenge of not just killing and torturing others, but to run day-to-day operations and to govern a territory. And this is exactly my point. If Baghdadi would fall away, then this would be an even bigger problem. But it seems even with him, this is just a bunch of chaotic, primitive, and brutal hooligans. This is exactly what GP said was now saying. They have they don't have vast resources here. They seem to have very few intelligent administrators, and the rest is just a bunch of stupid idiots who just want to go and fire AK-47s into the air and feel strong and point their finger, the finger into the sky and say, yeah, there's only one God, and I'm being taken care of, and I'm getting money for doing absolutely fuck all, and that's it. But it doesn't work, because the problem is that the information that we're getting, even though it is sketchy and possibly skewed, and nobody knows what is reliable about this information, there is information that they are starting to suffer. And that is economically, but because they're not getting the funding anymore.
Didn't this also happen in Islam's golden past? Islam got to a stage where it was conquering multiple lands and parts of the continent, but they completely dropped the Mohammedan edict that they should offer them Islam as a choice to pay in the jizya. They stopped saying you can become a Muslim and join us, because they found they got more money if they kept them as kafir, paying the cash. I'm not sure if I read this as a legitimate source or whether it was something written by Robert Spencer, who's always a bit dubious. I've been led to believe in what he writes.
Yeah, true.
So I don't know if anyone can back that up as a historical account.
I wouldn't know. I just know this thing that they offered it and that people accepted it because they didn't want to get killed. So they said, okay, Allahu Akbar, and then they said the Shahada, no God but God, and Muhammad is the Prophet, and that is it. And then they weren't killed. I don't know if that changed. I just know all these stories from Spain because there I went a little bit deeper. Any other takers? Aetios Socrates says there is truth there. It's just about how to show the process or shake things up regularly, which is the intention of limited terms, but some groups are starting to play that system too. No, this is something different. Look at Europe or something. Okay. Then from Daesh, let's go to refugees. Before we turn to Abu, Britain First is getting more and more coverage, I see. Remember, this is what we were talking about last week. We set off the discussion with Raven. Now, it's actually, I'm amazed that a lot of times I see things and I think, hey, you know, this could be important. Then this story will follow me over weeks and weeks and weeks. So I seem to have quite a good nose for what is going to, or what makes a lot of impact. And this Britain First is making a lot of impact. A lot of people are starting to notice them. A lot of people are starting to notice the propaganda, are starting to notice the videos, are starting to notice the whole intention behind it. Because, I mean, like I said, as much as I admire them, I also hate them. Because for me, they're not only about Islam and blah blah blah. They're also like Pegida in Germany, or now what was the other one, Brigida or something in Britain, where they are right-wing nationalists, conservative, non-mixing people who want to see Britain to the British and get Britain out of the EU and let us sever the ties and things like that. So there's a lot of things going against Britain First. But when it comes to, and this is the funny thing, there's a lot of people who are fascists, a lot of people who are, you know, like nationalists, who are actually spot on with what they are saying. And this is the funny thing, that when it comes to Islam, the traditional politicians are too politically correct to say anything, and these fascists and right-wing nationals are not. So they are hitting the nail on the head, except that a lot of people then believe what they are saying without seeing the ulterior motive behind it. And this is the danger that I see here. But now, refugees are being openly blamed.
Just want to clarify, you're saying that if you want to leave the EU, that you're a right-wing fascist?
No. I'm just saying this is part of their strategy.
Yeah, but what makes them right-wing fascists?
That they are saying that they don't want any more immigrants from Pakistan.
Well, that's kind of mostly radical Muslims, isn't it? If they're coming from Pakistan. Well, that's not really extreme position.
Okay, for me it's an extreme position if you say that the British should keep to themselves, that they should sort of, close the tunnel again and no bridges, no bloody anything. And if you want to go there, you have to come by boat.
There's a difference between saying we don't want to take people in from a part of the world where they're almost guaranteed to be totally incompatible with our way of life, and we don't want anybody coming in at all.
Okay, what do you want to call that?
Sorry?
What do you want to call that then?
Call what?
A group of people who, now I'm at a loss for words. What do you call people who say, okay, we want only the nationals in the country to take the jobs that we have for the nationals, and we don't want extra nationals to come to our nation?
Separatists or nationalists, and it's not just part of the right side movement. As George Galloway is part of the Brexit movement, and he's quoting his involvement due to post-historical Labour movements who wanted to leave Europe.
Okay, and what is the jump then, or the step then?
It's not a left or right. It's not a left or right philosophy. It's people claiming it's a left or right to tub thump and get the opposite side to get angry. So if I say it's a fascist movement, it's a right movement, that gets everybody in the left all angry and say we must stop it.
Oh, okay, I see what you're saying. All right.
So it's just tub thumping. You don't have to be left or right to decide if you want to leave Europe, or racist or non-racist.
Okay, I agree with that.
It's a case of you consider the facts, and you might say, well, I don't particularly like the Qur'an, so I don't particularly like anybody who follows the Qur'an coming into my country.
Okay, but Britain First, do they want to stay in the EU?
You know, I've got to admit, when it comes to Islam and the news, Britain, or my sources, my reading of the news, it's censored, heavily censored. I have heard absolutely nothing of Britain First. I've actually questioned why the Cologne attacks that happened over Friday were not reported at all. No, because I thought it was wonderful that the police in Germany made something like 190 odd arrests and arrested 2 potential terrorists who were going to cause an atrocity. Yet we heard absolutely nothing about it. It wasn't media news.
This is new attacks in Cologne, isn't it? It's not the New
Yeah.
Year's Eve.
Not the New Year's Eve ones, the ones that
But
happened
it's not going
of
alone now. The point was, I said...
My
that
point is,
first
if we're not hearing major
looking
news
for the
stories
Brexit.
like that, we are not going to be hearing of a group of 20 or 30 individuals causing problems. Now, Pegida, you mentioned, had a European-wide rally. We had our Pegida with Tommy Robinson over in Birmingham having his rally. That was underreported as well. No speeches, total silence. The only thing they focused on was the fact that some of the anti-fascist league who turned up caused a bit of troubles.
Okay, but Jeremy objected to my saying that Britain First wants to get out of the EU.
Well, we don't know what they want.
No, that wasn't. What I'm objecting to is the apparent equating of wanting to stop some people from, or wanting to control the quality and quantity of immigrants with wanting to stop all the immigrants coming in and, oh my God, you're a total extremist and you hate all foreign people.
Huh? Sorry, I didn't get that.
You seem to just automatically make the leap, but if people want to control the quality and quantity of immigrants,
Okay, which is justified.
you
Yes.
seem to make the immediate leap that they're xenophobic extremists who want to stop all foreigners.
Yes, that is what that is the impression.
There's a massive difference between the two.
Yes, but I'm saying Britain First is exactly xenophobic.
Well, they don't seem to be that level of xenophobic to me.
Okay, so you would say no, they want the former, the one that you said first, the controlled
Yeah,
immigration.
seems that way to me. Yeah, and they probably want to stop Muslims from Pakistan, which I would agree with, because if you look at Pakistan, the vast majority of Muslims there are damned intolerant of non-Muslims. I mean, I wouldn't want to be a non-Muslim in Pakistan.
Where's
Look at them, the
where's
way they
Maajid
behave,
Nawaaz
they
from?
seem to be like fanatical Christians, the way they latch onto holding pamphlets and trying to force them onto Muslims. They're behaving more like a religious fundamental group.
No, that's a tool. That's just.
Excuse me.
Yeah.
Can't say one thing and then the other.
This is just
Yes. I think some of them are Christian, and I think they're using that as their tool, but quite rightly, just like Muslims use Islam as their tool.
Okay, what country is Maajid Nawaaz from?
He's from England.
Originally from Southend, Guernsey, Southend way.
So he was born there.
Yeah, his family were from Pakistan.
And that's what I thought. I thought he's from Pakistan.
Not him. He was born here. He's third generation.
Oh, okay. But now his parents you wouldn't want his parents in Britain.
Oh,
They
his
seem
parents seemed
to
yeah, they were anti his terrorism ways.
they seemed to integrate better a few decades ago, but Pakistan has turned into a much less tolerant country now, much less reasonable.
Pakistan's been heavily influenced by the Saudi money and Wahhabi influence.
Salman Rushdie said Pakistan sucks.
Yeah, if you look at all of the Middle Eastern
Well, let me just remind people of something.
they
Because
have
I remember
radically changed.
when the Shah was ousted and Khomeini came in, a lot of the intelligentsia left Iran and they went to Pakistan.
If you look at the Shah when he was ousted, they weren't wearing headdresses.
Afghanistan. Then the people from Afghanistan went to Pakistan. And then when the Taliban were ousted, then they came back. So a lot of intelligent, highly educated people went to Pakistan. And let's not forget, Pakistan is the only Islamic country that I can think of that has nuclear weapons. They are able to produce it. Now, Iran has not been able to do so far. Pakistan has. So they've had a lot of development going on in Pakistan. It's only recently, like the last 10 years or so. And remember, Bhutto, a woman, was the head of the country.
Didn't they get the nukes from the AQ Khan network, though,
This I don't know.
rather than developing them from scratch?
I don't know if
Yes,
they developed
yes,
this from
they get
scratch or
them from
not.
AQ Khan. Yes,
I don't
that's
know.
true.
The point that I'm trying to make is that Britain First and other right. Okay, am I correct in classifying Britain First as right wing?
I think they call themselves right wing.
Jeremy, what do you say?
Yeah, well, it totally depends. I think the terms right wing and left wing aren't very useful, really. I mean,
Okay,
I mean, everyone who says right wing has got a different definition of right wing.
Okay, if I say Geert Wilders, if I say Marine Le Pen, I lump them into one group.
Yeah, the media tends to call them far right or extreme right or something, which I think is a very unhelpful term because you're basically lumping in the Nazis who want to kill millions of Jews.
No, I don't do that.
With people who want to stop Islamic immigration, which is incompatible with their society.
All right, I don't do that. I just find that if I look at Wilders, if I look at Le Pen, if I look at I forgot his name from Britain First, if I compare their messages, they are very, very similar, and they are very, very right. They are not right in the side, but as incorrect. And I have to admit this. I have to admit that there's a lot of stuff that they are saying which is actually spot on. And this is what worries me. And they are the ones who say that in Austria, for example, a boy of 10 was raped by a refugee, claiming it was a sexual emergency. I mean, wow, this is so sick. This is so sick that a guy will say, oh, I had a sexual emergency, I had to go and rape something. So instead of using a pig or something, I stuck it into a boy. Unbelievable. But you're not politically correct. You're not allowed to say these things. And this is why this is now where, okay, then people like Wilders, people like Le Pen, those people are pointing it out. And this is correct. And
Yeah,
I
he's
don't quite
running for
understand why
political
other
office.
people are not doing it.
He's running for political office, and I don't think Britain First is running for political office at all, or have any aspirations to.
According to Wikipedia, they are technically a political party.
What are they? Just a nuisance.
According to Wikipedia, they're a political party.
They're just a group of about 30 or so people who regard the English Defence League as a bunch of pussies. They want to be more militant.
Okay, but I must admit, I quite enjoyed the video when they walked through Luton, and they were hammered, and I thought this was so funny when you see the I think they were Pakistanis who were livid, who were trying to jump them, and only the cops could separate them and hold them back, and yes, as they wanted to really more them, just because they get aggressive so quickly. And I laugh at these idiots, especially since Britain First has some amazingly big bouncers there, and these guys don't care, they just want to hammer them. So I think this is quite funny. Oh, goodness. Okay. Well, I at least I can still laugh about this. And let me tell you, I am very much, I mean, since what happened to Ike, I'm very much aware that we're living on borrowed time here. Because any time a Muslim wants to, they can just go, I mean, it takes one sentence on one of these Facebook sites, and we've got 100 people who are all claiming that we are inciting violence, and there is, YouTube doesn't even ask questions. Oof, they close it down, finish. So this is the way that it works, because they either have violence or they have censorship. That's the only thing that helps. So we are living on borrowed time here, I know that. And
We're not on YouTube now, are we?
yeah, of course.
I thought we'd extricated ourselves from that.
No. But the thing is, we are on a Hangout, so it's a Google product. I mean, Ike was stopped. I mean, even my channel was stopped, and they don't stop it anymore. Like with Gin&Tonic, they stopped the Gin&Tonic, and they stopped spamming, and they didn't stop what was on top of that. So even for like 3 months, I was still able to read messages to stop spamming, and I was able to reply as stop spamming because everything was hosted on Google+. And because Google Plus did not ban me, so Google did not ban me, but YouTube did. So I was then able to still participate in these things. But now what they're doing is that they're doing a more thorough job, which means that when I was banned from YouTube, I was also banned from Google. And Ike has the same thing. He's not allowed to use a Hangout. So as soon as he tries to log in and use a Hangout, he can't. So it's not like with me where they said, well, you are banned for life. Well, excuse me, I did not go and break any of the rules. So if they say, well, you are banned because you broke the rules, well, I didn't break any rules, so why should I be banned? So this is my interpretation, and this is my way of dealing with this. I mean, it's stupid. If they don't want to talk to me, well, fuck them. If Google wants to talk to me, they can have a rational conversation, fine. But like this, it's stupid.
But where is godless.ch hosted?
In Hangouts, you mean?
No, they're just the website godless.ch.
That's Switzerland.
Yeah, so it's like an independent ISP, is it?
It's an independent ISP, but the thing is to get
kind
the
of got
streaming.
that YouTube can't mess around with, at least.
No, how do you get the streaming done?
Well, you can use a different streaming service if push comes to shove, but the point is you've at least got somewhere that they can't take down.
Even that is not impossible. Even that is possible, that people go and complain to your ISP and say you're inciting violence, and if they are not careful, you will be taken down. This is why I've put everything onto archive, because it's true that it's more difficult to get stuff off of archive, or it's very difficult for people to get stuff out of Switzerland. So Ike is now thinking of going into an independent server, independent everything within Switzerland, where he can just show them one of the fingers, and that is it.
Well, I thought that was what he had already.
No, this happened like 3 days ago.
Instead of archive?
No. What Ike was doing, he was using the Hangout, and it was being streamed onto YouTube. And now he's been castrated, so to speak, that he cannot use Hangout anymore. So his show, the show from Switzerland, doesn't work anymore because he's not allowed to use Hangout.
So he was doing the Swedish show that usually is a precursor to this one.
No.
Or was it that Raven thing that caused him to be banned?
No. Nobody knows. He was doing this, and he was doing a show in German from Switzerland. Somebody complained about the German show
to Google, and then Google stopped him and said, "Listen, one of your videos is inappropriate." That's all it takes nowadays. It's inappropriate, and because it's inappropriate. It was closed down, so he's not allowed to use any more Hangouts. So he can't do a Hangout, he can't stream to YouTube, and he's got all the usual restrictions. Yeah, those restrictions are a 6-monther, aren't they?
Well, apparently in this case it's more. Maybe they will lift it after 6 months. Nobody knows. But the thing is, what is inappropriate, and how can you fathom, and how can you learn what you did wrong if they don't tell you what you did wrong?
Oh, you can't find out what you did wrong. It's they did the same thing with Atheist Roo. He ended up with something like a 6-month ban where he wasn't able to do any Hangouts. He had to only limit his videos to 15 minutes.
Yeah, well, I was banned for life. For what? I don't know. Nobody has ever told me what I was supposed to have done wrong.
Well, you insulted the Prince of Saudi Arabia.
I did?
Yes.
And I'm not allowed to do that?
Apparently not.
I can insult anybody. Well, apparently not. This is the whole point, because freedom of speech is going down the drain. And I see this again. Look at what is. I mean, I don't know. Are you watching videos? What is happening in the US at the moment? Where universities. I mean, universities. That's where you learn critical thinking. That's where you're supposed to learn critical thinking.
So do you think it was an effect of that exposure of Merkel talking to Zuckerberg, asking to censor any talk about Islam? Do you think it was a knock-on effect of that? Ike was talking about Islam. Merkel had already dropped the word, "Don't let anybody talk about Islam," and he just got hammered.
Nobody knows, but it seems
think it
that
could be?
Muslims are now seeing the light, and they're saying, well, we can just shut up everybody who talks about Islam. And thinking, and this is the fallacy, they are thinking if you can't talk negatively about Islam, everybody thinks positive about it just because they're lying. It doesn't work that way, for crying out loud. And I see it again and again. Muslims are leaving Islam since Daesh came on the scene and committed atrocities because they say, hang on, is this really true that this is part of Islam? And then only do they start looking at Islam and they realize, oh, yes, it is part of Islam. And then they start doubting. And then they start looking, and then they start looking at all the other things and they realize, oh shit, this is stupid. I've been had.
Just going back to Tommy Robinson, I noticed a relatively recent interview with Dave Rubin and Tommy Robinson. It just amazes me how people in the regressive...
Sorry, is that the Rubin report?
Yeah.
Yeah.
People in the regressive left would presumably not describe themselves as regressive left. They wouldn't recognise themselves. They're described by other people.
That's not always the case, yeah.
I think Dave Rubin is almost part of the regressive left and he just doesn't realise it. Because it's amazing how he starts out by sort of saying, oh, I wasn't even sure about having you on the show. So it's like, well, that's not much of a commitment to free speech. People are sort of saying he's brave to even have him on the show. But then he sort of accuses Tommy Robinson of being part of the far right without any real evidence. So that's kind of regressive left, in my opinion. And this is Rubin's big thing. He insists on, like, the first thing he always says is, well, we can't criticise Muslims. We've got to make sure, no matter what we do, we don't criticise Muslims. We can criticise Islam, but not Muslims. Not Muslims. It's like, how can you criticise Islam and not Muslims when so many Muslims define themselves by the ideology? I think you're not going to make any progress if you insist on every single time you discuss it, you can't criticise Muslims.
Yeah, this is the problem. That people say you can only criticize the idea, but not the people who follow it. And I'm sorry, I can criticize Muslims who are inclined to go and do harm to me. And I can criticize Muslims who spout nonsense and who lie, who deceive. I can criticize them. And at the same time, I will quite openly say most Muslims are better than their God. And that's it. And most Muslims just want to have a brilliant life, and they're just the same as me. They will behave very similar to me. They will pick up a wallet that somebody else has dropped and give it back to the person. They will protect, like you say, they will protect other people from being shot because they are human beings like everybody else. It's only when they get brainwashed, it's only then that things start going sour. And that is it. And I stand by that. I will criticize idiots like this Dawa man or Tsortsis or Nike or assholes like that. I call them assholes. I call them charlatans, and I will criticize them. I don't think I should be tiptoeing around that. I can't say that I cannot criticize a single Muslim. Bullshit.
Yeah, I just think there's a real mental disconnect going on in the likes of Dave Rubin. It's almost as if half of his brain is fighting the other half, because he'll say a sentence like, we've got to avoid criticizing Muslims. We just have to criticize certain individual Muslims. You're criticizing Muslims, then, aren't you?
Yes, but Dave Rubin is not only from California, he's American. And they have a schizophrenic culture over there where they have been brought up to only see the good.
That may actually be the case. He may actually be, the right side of his cortex may actually be regressive left, and his left side may be more conservative. It's not impossible.
Could be.
But I mean, I think it's very weird, if you say you can't criticize murder, you can criticize murder, but you can't criticize murderers.
That's basically that's basically how I hear it when he says Muslims, Islam, but for some reason, when it's religion, it's magically different in terms of not being able to criticize the people, having to divorce the person from the ideology or from the belief system that causes their behavior.
There is a problem with criticizing Muslims, and if I equate it to Christians, you can criticize the Christian Bible, but you can't criticize the Amish. There aren't many Amish terrorists, you see. They're not known for their violence. And that's the
Are they even
problem.
Christian?
That's the problem they got from in America. A lot of the Muslims who originally came over were those people fleeing the regime change that happened in Iran. They weren't Ayatollah Shia Muslims. In fact, a lot of the terrorism that has occurred have only been committed by Muslims who are recent immigrants.
The Christian Amish thing doesn't work very well because you can genuinely strip Christianity down to a core of what Christ said, and it was pretty much okay.
No, I'm just using it as a very fuzzy example.
When you get ideologies whose core is reprehensible,
you can criticise the core, and
that's when I would say
you can name that core, can't you? You could say the core is Quran. You can name the core as the Hadiths. You could name the core as a collective as Islam. But then you say it's all Muslims. You're up a creek, because the defenders can quote, yeah, but what about that particular sect of Muslims? They're pacifists. Or that particular sect. They've never committed violence in the whole of their entire
No, but they claim to believe in the text as being the perfect word of God that condones it. So I still criticise them.
Then they cherry pick what they particularly believe in.
I criticise them for claiming to believe in such a bad ideology.
But then you can't. I mean, it's like that video that stopped being brought up about the who is a real Muslim, and he go through all those lists of the different cults, and they're saying no, we're not real Muslims, and then they all claim that they are.
Would say is that when you get Islam down to its core doctrines upon which the large majority agree, which is pretty hard to disagree with, they are terrible doctrines. So pretty much every single Muslim who claims to believe in that, including Maajid Nawaaz, is worthy of criticism and should be confronted with it.
You have to be very specific, I think, otherwise you've lost the battle in the start.
Well, does Maajid Nawaaz think wife beating is okay? Does he think killing homosexuals is okay? Killing apostates is okay?
I suggest you watch that video that I've plugged about it, because he does talk about his interpretations and why he religiously believes he is a Muslim, but not the Muslim who would go out and commit fundamental terrorism.
Which video is that? Because I've seen him describe himself as a non-devout Muslim, whatever that's supposed to be.
Oh, stop spamming has linked it, haven't you?
No. I will link it in the description box when the video is finished. I can't do it now.
Yeah, well,
Can you get in the chat though?
It's in the I already.
It's in the chat.
In the chat.
But don't go looking for it now. I'll link it later. Please don't leave now, for goodness sake, and start watching a video.
Yeah.
Okay, listen, guys.
No, but you'll forget. I know you. You'll forget to put it in the description.
It's in.
You know.
It's in group chat now. You can save it.
Yeah.
But
Islamism.
Okay, Abu, did you get some time off this week? Did you have some spare minutes today? Last week.
Yes, in fact, because I had.
You talk. I will keep quiet, and I can go and get myself a beer and listen. Everybody, listen up.
I'm going to take off my mic.
Well, yeah, the reason why I had time over because I got the flu. So I don't know if Allah punished me or if He granted me the opportunity. Okay, so I translated three like fatwa or fatawa from. 3 sheikhs. So I start with the hardest one to understand. So if any one of you don't understand what I'm saying, please interrupt me and I will try to explain. So this is about like this, there is no compulsion in religion. What is the true meaning of this? So we'll start with this hardest one with Sheikh Mohamed ibn Salih al-Uthaymeen and my crappy translation from Arabic to English. And first I say about him, he's a Saudi sheikh, Wikipedia says this, was a Sunni scholar of Saudi Arabia who was considered a giant within the conservative Salafi Islam. He died 2001, January 2001, from, this doesn't say in Wikipedia, he died from cancer in his stomach. Anyway, so this is from when he is making tafsir on the Qur'an, and this is from my translation. Anyway, Allah says, there is no compulsion in religion. The right cause has been clear from the wrong. And then he explained every word grammatically, which is more or less impossible to understand if you haven't studied Arabic grammar, so I skipped that part until he says, and this sentence is, as we can see, nafi, negation, but is the meaning nahi, inhibition, or is it rather khabar mahd, pure information? So it's said that its meaning is a nahi, negation, which means do not force anyone to enter Allah's religion. And upon this word it has been said that this verse is abrogated. And it has been said, note, it is particular. It has been said that this verse is abrogated by the verses of jihad. And he doesn't say that, but in order for you to understand, I add an and. It has been said that this verse is particular by the verses of jizya. And those who said it is particular, they differ amongst themselves. Is it that in general or only for the people of the books, Jews, Christians, and Zoroastrians? This is by the word that a nahi, negation, here is nahi, inhibition. But if we say that a nahi is khabar mahd, pure information, that Allah informs us that he do not force anyone to enter his religion, because he will enter the religion by his own choice. On the evidence of his, Allah's word, the right course has become clear from the wrong. So the issue is clear, and a human, when he looks into the religion with an examiner's outlook, with knowledge and justice, then truly he will choose the religion of Islam and not any other one. And on this it is khabar mahd, pure information. This is grammatical terms. Its benefit that people do not enter Allah, the greatest religions, disliking it, but they will enter it by their own choice, because the right course is clear and the wrong course is clear. And every human that can think will be on the right course and not the wrong, because this is appropriate for reason and fitra. Fitra is like your innate, like natural belief in God, like that. Which of these issues are the first to be correct? The ula in Arabic, but like the first to be correct. The obvious, or the zahir, is that the second one is the first to be correct, because that is proving with leading evidence that the religion of Islam is the religion of fitra, this innate belief in God, which is not possible to choose in a forced way. And then the Sheikh more or less repeat the same things over again until he says, but in the case of the first one, so I said to you that the scholars differed amongst themselves. Is the verse abrogated, or is it a judgment, or is it particular? And in shortness, it is like this. It is particular of the people of the book, or is it particular of the people of the book, or is it general? And that which is obvious from the evidence that it is nahi, inhibition, is that the verse is particular, because non-Muslims are forced to enter Islam or pay the jizya, or else qital, war or battle, or we should translate it. And then he quotes the Qur'an, fight against those who believe not in Allah, nor in the last day, nor forbid that which has been forbidden by Allah and his messenger, and those who acknowledge not the religion of truth, i.e. Islam, among the people of the scriptures, Jews, Christians, and Zoroastrians, until they pay the jizya willingly, with willing submission, and feel themselves subdued. Is that understood? He asked the students. And then he talks a lot of things that we already know, like the Prophet came with the true religion, and Jews and Christians are not on the true path anymore, and so on, until he says, so we say that this verse is general but particular. That is it becomes very funny when you translate it to English, but yeah. It's general but particular. That means that we say, force the infidels to enter Islam or pay the jizya, and that is a must. And if they refuses, then war will be waged against them. And so did the Prophet, peace be upon him, when he ordered an admiral in command of an army or slaves. He ordered them these three characteristics. Okay, any questions?
Yes. Does he refer to the your religion to you and mine to mine, and there's no compulsion?
Yeah, in the beginning, but I skipped that because he talks only about like grammar. You see what I'm saying? It's very boring for you to listen to like a lecture about grammar, so I skipped that.
No, but he said, okay, what you've done is you've pointed out that he believes that you should join Allah, and that every Muslim is compelled to force you into this belief. But
No, look,
and to kill
he's
those who don't. But now, how does that relate to the opposite? This dualism in the Quran. How does that relate to the other side?
well, as I understand it, I think Sheikh Al-Uthaymeen. I mean, there are two opinions, or actually, there are two opinions, and he explains this. There are two opinions, and among the second, there are two opinions. The first opinion is that this is only abrogated. Khalas, there is nothing to say about it. The verses of jihad and jizya has abrogated it. Nothing to say. But I think his opinion, and this is many, like for example, Shaykh al-Islam Ibn Taymiyyah and his student Ibn al-Qayyim think that is particular in like, or I don't know if particular is a good translation, but yeah, this is particular to that they have to pay the jizya. And among the people who say that particular, some of them say it's only particular to Jews, Christians, and Zoroastrians, but to polytheists they have to choose Islam or die. But we will talk more about that, because now I will talk about Mohamed Nasruddin al-Albani, and we have what he says about it. So I think it will be clear. Okay?
Yeah.
Or if you want to ask anything, if it wasn't clear, you can. Because this is the hardest one to understand. The guys now will be easy.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay. So Mohamed Nasruddin al-Albani, for those who don't know who he is, according to Wikipedia, was an Albanian Islamic scholar who specialized in the field of Hadith and fiqh, or like jurisprudence.
What era?
He was born in Albania 1914 and died 1999, I think, in Jordan, because I knew one of his students who was from Jordan. Anyway, and actually also I when I was in Medina, I discovered one of his scriptures in the library there. It was about Hajj. So I could have made a lot of money on that thing, but I was too pious enough to not make a lot of money on it. So stupid. Anyway, yeah. Okay. Great scholars of our time have praised him extensively. The late Grand Mufti of Saudi Arabia, Sheikh Mohammed ibn Ibrahim al-Ali Sheikh, said, and he is the upholder of the Sunnah, the supporter of the truth, and in opposition to the people of the falsehood. The late former Grand Mufti Sheikh Abdulaziz ibn Baz said, I have not seen anyone under the surface of the sky with more knowledge of Hadith in our current time than the likes of the great scholar Mohamed Nasruddin al-Albani. Sheikh ibn Baz, in fact, was of the opinion that al-Albani was the mujaddid of our era. The mujaddid is like the revivaler. Do you say like that? Like the one who is reviving the religion every 100 or every century. It's a hadith that says that every century there will come a great man that I'm a great mujaddid. All great scholars, including Sheikh Al-Uthaymeen, have praised him extensively. Okay, so this is my translation. Albani, Sheikh Albani, that was it. Albani, yes, student, peace be upon you. Albani, peace be upon you. Student, I have a question. Albani, you are welcome. Student, regarding God's words, there is no compulsion in religion, and the Prophet's words, peace be upon him, I have been ordered to fight the people until they testify that there is no God worth worshipping but Allah. How is it possible to combine this verse and this hadith? Albani, don't you know that there are 3 judicial rulings in Sharia? Either convert to Islam, otherwise you have to pay the jizya, a tax for non-Muslims. And then he quotes the Quran, Fight until they give the jizya willingly while they are humbled. And otherwise qital, war battle. Do you know this? Student: yes. Albani: good. So in that case, do not just look at the hadith only, but take all the judicial rulings together from the ahadith, the sunnah. So if you happen to know that there is jizya, a tax for non-Muslims, and the meaning of that is that the kafir, the infidel, remain in his religion, so that doesn't contradict, there is no compulsion in religion. Truly, the jizya is compulsory if he chooses to stay in his religion. Is that clear? Student: yes. Okay, so now is my last translation, but the last thing I will read is not my own translation, so maybe that will be better. But this is from Sheikh Al-Fawzan, according to Wikipedia. Sheikh Al-Fawzan is an Islamic scholar and has been a member of several high religious bodies in Saudi Arabia. Okay, he's not as big as the other ones that I read, because the other ones are the three biggest in our time. But this guy is alive in Saudi Arabia, and he's a big sheikh there. Okay, reader: pardon me, sheikh. He, a student in the audience, asks what the meaning of his Allah's words, "There is no compulsion in religion," is. Sheikh Al-Fawzan: there is no compulsion to enter into the religion of Islam. No one is forced to enter the religion unless he disposed Islam. If he do not dispose Islam because he had never been a Muslim to begin with, then he have to swear the Dhimma oath, special oath for non-Muslims, and pay the jizya, and we leave him alone. If he is Kitabi, that means Jew, Christian, or Zoroastrian. Kitabi, Jews, Christians, Zoroastrians, so either he convert to Islam or he must be killed because of his shirk, polytheism. But in the case of who commits apostasy, leaves Islam, in that case it is compulsory to kill him. The Prophet said, the one who changes his religion, Islam, then kill him. Then it is compulsory to kill him, because he had learned the truth and experienced that it is the truth. He entered the truth and lived the truth, and experienced that it is the truth, and it also is harmful for others. They may follow him. It is compulsory to kill him. And this asbaha ad-dinu, like, have the religion become a thing of play? No, you can't play with the religion. And then he quotes from the Qur'an. And a faction of the people of the scriptures say to each other, believe in that which was revealed to the believers at the beginning of the day, and reject it at its end, that perhaps they will abandon their religion. So, and this is Sheikh speaking, so the apostate can become an example for others, so it is compulsory to kill him. And this I couldn't quite hear what he said, but I think he said to avoid his evil. As for the case that takes place before he enters Islam, then there is no compulsion. But he ought to have the ruling of Sharia explained to him without killing him. Yes. And then the questioner started to ask a question, but I think he doesn't hear as well, so he continue. And some Islamic scholars are of the opinion that the jizya can be collected from every infidel, whether he is from the people of the book, Jews, Christians, Zoroastrians, or not from the people of the book. And this is what is rajih, like the overbalanced view. I translated it as overbalanced view. I don't know how you translate rajih. So that's Sheikh Fawzan. And the last one. Oh, do you have any questions?
Am I understanding this correct, that he's completely sidestepping the question?
No, he says it quite clear. No, but he's an old man, you know how, like, first he says that the only thing that is quite contradictory is that first he says that it's only the Kitabi that has to, and then but if he's not from the Kitabi, they have to kill him because of his shirk. But in the end,
so he's sidestepping the question. What about there is no compulsion in religion?
Well, he says in the beginning there is no compulsion to enter to religion. But the only thing that is contradictory is that in the end he says, and some Islamic scholar of the opinion that jizya can be collected from every infidel, whether he is Kitabi or not.
So there is compulsion in the end, when you feel like it, when you want it to be, but there is none when you think you need to defend it.
Well, as he's on the view of the particular. Like
but the particular means that yes, there is compulsion. No.
The particular is
there is no compulsion, but then in certain cases it is. And then for some reason, the cases that are greater than the ones where you say there is no compulsion.
Yeah. Yeah, like he doesn't say that it is abrogated. He has to say that it means in a very special particular cases.
Exactly. This is why I'm calling it sidestepping, because it doesn't really, create a hard ruling on this.
I disagree with you there, Spam. I think he's Islamically saying quite clearly you have a choice. There is no compulsion when you have a choice. You have a choice, you can do one of three things. You can join our religion, that's your first choice. There's no compulsion to do it. You can pay us your tax. There's no compulsion to do that either. Or you can go, you can leave. No compulsion there either.
Or you can get killed.
No.
You've got a choice.
If you don't pay the jizya, they will fight you.
No, well, Mohamed himself did banish people. He told them to leave rather than take their taxes.
Well, that's another discussion we can have. I think we have to make some.
Okay, go to the last one.
Okay, the last one. This I haven't translated myself, so hopefully this will be better. Okay, this was Sheikh Abdulaziz ibn Baz, and he was Saudi Arabian Islamic scholar and
Is that the blind one?
What?
Is that the blind one?
Yes, blind one, exactly. Was Saudi Arabian scholar and a leading proponent of Salafi form of Islam. He was the Grand Mufti of Saudi Arabia from 1993 until his death in 1999. And this is from Majmu' Fatawa wa Maqalat li Sheikh Ibn Baz. Some friends say that whoever does, this is a questioner, a guy in the audience. Some friends say that whoever does not enter Islam, that is his choice, and he should not be forced to become Muslim, quoting as evidence the verses in which Allah says, and this is from Yunus, verse 99, and had your Lord willed, those on earth would have believed, all of them together. So will you, O Muhammad, then compel mankind until they become believers? And this verse that we talk about, Baqarah 2:256, there shall be no compulsion in religion. What is your opinion concerning that? So now Sheikh Ibn Baz answering. Praise be to Allah. The scholars explain that these two verses and other similar verses have to do with those from whom the jizya may be taken, such as Jews, Christians, and Zoroastrians, or magicians, he said. I don't know how do you say that in English. They are not to... excuse me?
Magi's.
Magi's. Okay, Magi's. Magi's. They are not to be forced. Rather, they are to be given the choice between becoming Muslim or paying the jizya. Other scholars said that this applied in the beginning, but was subsequently abrogated by Allah's command to fight and wage jihad. So whoever refuses to enter Islam should be fought when the Muslims are able to fight, until they either enter Islam or pay the jizya if they are among the people who may pay jizya. The kuffar should be compelled to enter Islam if they are not people from whom the jizya may be taken, because that will lead to their happiness and salvation in this world and in the hereafter. Obliging a person to adhere to the truth in which is guidance and happiness is better for him than falsehood, just as a person may be forced to do the duty that he owes to other people, even if that is by means of imprisonment or beating. So forcing the kuffar to believe in Allah alone and enter into the religion of Islam is more important and more essential, because this will lead to their happiness in this world and in the hereafter. Sorry.
Okay.
Sorry.
I prefer McDonald's chips, and that's why nobody is allowed to eat anything else but McDonald's chips. What an asshole.
Sorry. I couldn't. Okay. This applies unless they are people of the book, i.e. Jews, Christians, or Magians, or whatever it is. Because Islam says that these three groups may be given the choice. They may enter Islam or they may pay the jizya and feel themselves subdued. Some of the scholars are of the view that others may also be given the choice between Islam and jizya, but the most correct view is that no others should be given this choice. Rather, these three groups are the only ones who may be given the choice because the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, fought the kuffar in the Arabian Peninsula, and he only accepted them becoming Muslims. And Allah says, "But if they repent by rejecting shirk polytheism and accept Islamic monotheism, and perform salah and give zakah, then leave their way free. Verily, Allah is oft forgiving, most merciful." At-Tawbah, verse 5. He did not say, if they pay the jizya. The Jews, Christians, and I can't say that, the Zoroastrians are to be asked to enter Islam. If they refuse, then they should be asked to pay the jizya. If they refuse to pay the jizya, then the Muslims must fight them if they are able to do so. Allah says, "Fight against those who believe not in Allah, nor in the last day, nor forbid that which has been forbidden by Allah and His Messenger, and those who acknowledge not the religion of truth, i.e. Islam, among the people of the Scripture, until they pay the jizya with willing submission and feel themselves subdued." Surah At-Tawbah, verse 29. And this was proven that it was proven that the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, accepted the jizya from the Magians, the Zoroastrians, but it was not proven that the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, or his companions, may Allah be pleased with them, accepted the jizya from anyone except the three groups mentioned above. The basic principle concerning that is the words of Allah, and fight them until there is no more fitna, disbelief and polytheism, i.e. worshipping others besides Allah. And the religion worship will all be for Allah alone in the whole world. Al-Anfal, verse 39. Then, when the sacred months have passed, then kill the mushrikun wherever you find them, and capture them and besiege them, and lay in wait for them in each and every ambush. But if they repent by rejecting shirk polytheism and accept Islamic monotheism and perform salah, iqamatu salah, and give zakah, then leave their way free. Verily, Allah is oft forgiven, most merciful. Surah At-Tawbah, verse 5. This verse is known as Ayatul Sayf, the verse of the sword. These and similar verses abrogate the verse which say that there is no compulsion to become Muslim.
Okay.
And Allah is the source of strength. Okay.
Okay, well, all right, this guy is very clear. So we have, again, inconsistencies. Again, I mean, thank you very much for bringing all this up and for digging into this. Thank God you had a cold. So if I can, let me see if I understand this correctly. If you look into this, you will find very different opinions. You will say some people who say, yes, it was abrogated. In other words, the older, more lenient sentences have been replaced with more violent ones. Then you get people who say, no, you should first check, do they want to enter, do they want to this? So they are looking at grammatical and looking at word games, how you can interpret this. And then you have the people who say, I don't really know, it depends on the situation. Is that correct, if you look into that this is the situation that you have?
Well, I think all of them, they are not only looking at it grammatically, I think they are looking at like the whole picture, all of them. It's just that they come to different conclusions. Yeah. But the big conclusion, the big difference is between those who think it's abrogated and those who think it's particular. And among the particulars are the guys of the particular school.
Which requires mind gymnastics.
Yeah. But anyway, they among the particular school, is it only for Christian Jews and Zoroastrians, or is it for all kuffar? Yeah. So you can say that there's more like three schools here.
But what I like is the one guy who says, well, I think it should be like this, and because I like it, everybody has to do it like that. Brilliant.
Ibn Baz.
Brilliant.
There is an hadith also that narrated, well, there are several hadith, but the one that is in Sahih Bukhari and Sahih Muslim is narrated by Abdullah ibn Abbas. When the children of a woman in pre-Islamic days did not survive, they took a vow that on herself that if her child survives, she would convert it a Jew. When Banu Nadir were expelled from Arabia, there were some children of the Ansar helpers among them. They said, "We shall not leave our children." So Allah the Exalted revealed, "Let there be no compulsion in religion. Truth stands out clear from error." So I don't know if that brings any more. I don't. As I said, I don't know if this makes it any. But that's the story about the revelation. And Sheikh Albani says that this is Sahih. The chain is Sahih.
Yeah, of course, but it doesn't help, does it?
No, it doesn't make the thing clear. But
wow.
Yeah, because there was a guy in the last, I think it was Raven that asked about this story. So I found an hadith.
I think he's still suffering from his hangover.
Okay. Yeah, it's okay.
Wow, but this is amazing. So in other words, what you have shown is no matter how deep you dig, no matter how well you speak the language, no matter what it is that you're doing, as soon as you start digging, you can come up with any story that you like and it will be correct. You will find some guy out there who will substantiate your very particular version of what it is that you make it. This is what I am taking away from this, no matter how deep you go.
Well, yeah, maybe, but if you think about it practically, from like jurisprudence, actually there's only two practical differences, and that is because whether or not you think this verse is abrogated or not doesn't really matter, because there is still the question: does non-Christian Jews and Zoroastrians, do they have the alternative of jizya? So that's really
on top of that, exactly.
But that's really the big question from a practical point of view. You see what I'm saying?
So it's total confusion. Yeah. Wow. Okay, that's brilliant. Thank you so much for that. This is for me. This is amazing because it's exactly what I have suspected. You can do whatever you want, and you can take the abrogation and you can go and say, look, it depends what you want. It depends what you want to show, because I don't know how many Muslims have told me, no, there's no abrogation and it stands on its own feet. And this is the perfect example that it does not. And I think this is one of the best examples you can find in the whole of Islam to show the confusion you have. Wow.
I think it's the interesting thing, I think, is that almost all Muslims always bring this ayah, and exactly. It's like there is no compulsion in religion. But okay, but look at what it actually means. Look what the scholar says about this. Yeah. Is it really no compulsion in religion? I mean, half of them, or well, I don't know half, but one part of them say it's not even there anymore. It's abrogated. So. And those who don't say you have to pay the jizya, and so if you're not a Jew or Christian, you don't really have any choice, or Zoroastrian. So it's yeah.
So there is a force behind it that forces you to do something that you do not necessarily want to do. This is the whole point of it. And it goes to the extent that you can be killed if you go and you say, not interested.
Yeah.
And it says, this is, I don't know if I should actually make a video, because a lot of people don't understand this duality that you have in the Quran, because it says alcohol is good, is not good. You are allowed this, but you're not allowed this. So there's always one says this and the other one says the opposite. So you can take whichever side you want and you can argue either side.
Yeah. Maybe not everything. It's hard to say things that, it's very hard to say things that differ from everything that has been said so far. But there are a lot of ikhtilaf. The weirdest school, if you want to find weird things, is the school or the madhab of Abu Hanifa. There you can find really weird stuff. But I don't know what he says about this thing. Yeah.
Okay, just as a quick explanation before we end, madhabs are the different regions and areas where you have the different kinds of interpretations based on one guy who decided this is the way that it should be interpreted. They are called madhabs, and you have four major ones, the Hanafi, Hanbali, Shafi, and these are areas which govern things like to the minutest detail. Like if you're standing for prayer, your right hand has to be over your left wrist, but is it on the height of your navel or underneath or on top of it? So these are the little differences that you have, and they go to really significant differences whether women should be stoned or not, and exactly what Abu has just pointed out. Just as an explanation with a little bit of background. Oh, goodness. No, I'm actually quite speechless because.
Can Ike, can you speak Albanian language?
Not so fluently, but I understand most of it.
Okay. Funny. No, because then, but do you know Sheikh Albani?
I've heard his name and read in the book about him, but not deeply.
Okay. I was looking for some quotes, so I thought maybe you would be an expert, but okay, doesn't matter.
No, I can't help with Albani.
I mean, I should be an expert because I knew his student. So, but it's really hard to find some quotes. I just know them, but I want to find evidence.
All right, so then all that remains is to say thank you again, Well, thank you very much, and I hope we can ask you again, because this was an excellent job of showing the different versions. And it's so nice to have somebody where nobody can say, yeah, but he doesn't understand it, and he didn't study this. No, this is beyond all reproach, and that's it. Brilliant stuff. Okay, any other questions? Any other comments? No, it doesn't seem like it. Okay, I'm very happy. I was actually thinking about this earlier, whether Ike was able to join a Hangout or whether the whole service of Hangouts has been taken from him, or whether by now everything has been reinstated. I do not know. But now we come to the Hadith of the day. Can you do this, or should I do this?
You can't. You know you can't. I will do it, and this is another account, so that's the reason why I can join.
Ah. Continuing on with last week's sentiment, according to Bukhari 8:387, Allah's Apostle said, I have been ordered to fight the people till they say, none has the right to be worshipped but Allah. And if they say so, pray like our prayers, face our Qibla, and slaughter as we slaughter, then their blood and property will be sacred to us, and we will not interfere with them except legally. There you go. So much for no compulsion. This is exactly. I don't think this is coincidence actually. That this has been the topic now for the last couple of shows now, where we're talking exactly about this. No compulsion. Fight them until they pray to the same God. Then we have peace. Well, it doesn't work like that, does it?
When are we going to get the animations back in Hadith of the Week?
This was animated.
Well, I wanted to do like last week something similar, but as a counterweight, taking the Surah 109 verse 6, where it says, "My religion to me and yours to you." And I couldn't find any sources on YouTube that I could use, so to make Islam look a little bit better. So people seem to want not to be Islam look good for their own good.
Okay, I think I'd misunderstood. Jeremy, you were talking about the extended versions where Ike has added a little bit of animation to explain it a little bit further. Is that what you were talking about?
Yeah, we're just not showing them on the live stream now.
Oh, no. There is, sometimes he does them, sometimes he doesn't. It depends on the source material. And this time there was no source material on the your religion to your, you and mine to mine. There were no possibilities of animating that.
I can think of a very good animation of the green Muslim having a bag of swag over his shoulder, walking away, and then somebody says, "I do believe in Allah," and he has to drop the bag and look very miserable and sulkily walk off without his loot.
Yeah, it's a lack of imagination, really, isn't it?
Is that what it is? Okay. What does it mean, pretty apostates? Stop, I made your poll, but nobody liked it. What poll was that? What did I say? Did I forget something? Oh, I think I said, but that was just a joke. Let's make a poll on this. Nobody liked it, so nobody submitted. Okay. All right, then that's it for today. Straw poll, exactly. Oh, the Burak. Oh, whether or not, if a woman drives the Burak, if the woman decides where she will go, or if the Burak decides where the woman will go. Okay. Well, we can maybe we can experiment this. If anybody's got a Burak available, can you make it available for an experiment, please? Not have a man drive it, but to have a woman drive it this time around and see what happens. Okay, guys, thank you very much. This was the Gin&Tonic Show, where we go and we discuss Islam. If you want to join, go to godless.ch. And if you just want to watch it, go to godless.ch if you just want to watch it and make some written comments. If you want to join the show, go to hangout.godless.ch. Thank you, Ike, for all the technical support and all the stuff he's doing in the background. It's amazing. And thank God now that he's lost the show, he's got a lot more time to think about and let his imagination roam wild for further, well, I don't know, what do you call them? Well, they're not really animations. Ideas that he has to explain further. But the thing is, I'm putting him under a lot of pressure because a lot of times I actually forget this. And then he has to remind me, like on a Thursday evening, come on, man, give Ali some food, otherwise he doesn't have time, because it takes a lot of time to actually animate this the way that it does. So, thank you, guys. We'll see you next week. Bye.
Bye.